Animation, anime, animated films, all composed of a bending world containing fictional characters and flashy visuals. 2D and 3D animation implies diverse concepts and graphics, mostly seen in cartoons for kids like Disney, Pixar, and etc. Nevertheless, this thinking style has drawbacks and limitations of what a person thinks of animated films. As adults, people probably disregard it and diverge from them entirely, as they're considered to be for a younger audience. Animation, though, can go so much further than some comics kids delve into. Welcome to Animation Universe, or as I like to call it, Animaverse, where we discuss animation's fantasy world. Animated films aren't receiving that much attention compared to live-action cinema, just because of their perceived children-like styles. Even though they can uniquely blend visuals and characters creatively, which narrative transportation studies prove by revealing animation's ability to enhance storytelling and convey messages more emotionally engagingly, even for an older audience. The most critical aspect of an animated movie is freely manipulating the world, physics, and characters with stunning visuals and techniques. This level of freedom adds exciting ways to convey messages, which generally are a lot more noticeable and impact-heavy. Pakistan Languages and Humanities Review published a research paper, Nonverbal Communication Through Visual Storytelling, by Aram Sagir, Ariba Khalid, and Sami Salwar, who discusses the animated film Umbrella and how it incorporated nonverbal communication to change how the character looks concerning their mood and traits. They talk about how it delivers a specific but straightforward message. The influence of nonverbal communication on his viewers has a great impact, which makes them emotionally attached in order to transfer a specific message. Our brains make these character decisions based on their looks, moods, expressions, and even in real life. We humans merely communicate non-verbally whether we know it or not. Our brain automatically interprets what another person feels based on facial features, stances, hand gestures, and what they're wearing, which builds a picture of this person. A person wearing a hoodie and headphones most likely doesn't want to be bothered, which we observe based on body language without any dialogue. Whatever people say may not portray what they think based on their body's actions, as action mean more than words. Mike Ulrich, who works as a visiting researcher at the Department of Psychology at Stanford University, edited a book called Emotion in Animated Films, which has many authors' writings, including herself. She talks about the unlimited freedom animation produce, stating, "Along with general characteristics of popular movies, computer animated films use the specific freedom to push their creations to an extreme, that is, by designing likable characters that display accordingly likable characteristics. Along with the film's focus on their expressions, that especially supports emotional engagement with the heroes. Since animation converges outside realism, more dramatic and exaggerated effects will make the characters' emotions more meaningful. A perfect example is in the movie Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, where the main character, Puss in Boots, has a panic attack. They use basic signs of a panic attack like you would experience in real life. However, upon entering this phase, the animators use many visual elements, such as perception of time slowing down around him, his hair standing up, his pupils changing, and color and hue distortions. Combining basic filmmaking techniques like dolly zoom, blurring around the peripheral, and extreme close-up shots with awkward camera movements and positions ultimately portray what's going on in Puss in Boots' head and how deadly afraid he is of death. Once the visuals kick in, it automatically brings out the audio. Making everything after the scene feels so real. The after effects of the panic attack stood out because of how draining it was to experience high lows of adrenaline, like you're a part of it, making it easier to empathize with them, especially if you've personally experienced great amounts of anxiety and panic attacks before. Narrative transportation is where animation thrives. Narrative transportation just means how immersed a viewer will get. Yeshiva University Libraries published a study by Sammy Friedman, Jacob Jablonka, Josh Siegel, and Ron Mushmore in the differing effects of narrative transportation across animated and live-action movies. Their studies worked by having two groups, animated and live-action, each being the same clip but being remade into a live-action from Disney. They showed either visual or auditory clips. They gave a prompt to respond to a phrase or an action by giving a thumbs up. They predicted that animated films would have more people who would forget to give a thumbs up because they're so invested in the story. The results were as followed. In animated audio clips, the average number of stimuli missed was 1.125 per clip, while visual clips had 1.143. Across the live-action clips, the audio stimuli missed was 0.426, while visuals had 0.167. Firstly, this shows animation's strength with visuals as it has the highest stimuli missed. The participants were also college students at the university, so there was no skewed data because the audience might have been for kids. And this brings out the following strength of animated clips: nostalgia. If anything, these college students probably watched these animated clips already as they were younger, so wouldn't that make them biased? Well, no. Firstly, not all the participants might have watched the movie. If they did, they're already watching it for a second time. So with the live action part, it should have been a different and unique experience. However, as people say, live action doesn't really carry out the same vibes as animated clips do, especially in the remade versions. As much as animated films transform storytelling into a different universe, live action films seem more dominant. Joseph Thomas Stack, who's been writing reviews and discussion pieces since 2018, wrote The Problems with Animation, which discusses animation's issues, downsides, and limitations. He explains that these movies are made for kids as the primary target audience, and sometimes suffer as a result. He gives one example from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, talking about the two cats who compete to see whose big eye face is cuter, and a metaphor where they overcome an obstacle by literally stopping to smell the roses. Unfortunately, a good handful of animated films portray entertainment for kids. However, that doesn't mean adults can't enjoy it either. Based on many reaction videos, adults seem to be laughing at the same jokes that children understand. However, these movies aren't as childish as they seem in every scene, as Dreamworks proves with their best antagonist of all time. Again, referring to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, every time death reveals himself, some kids start to bawl their eyes out, according to people in theaters and some moms complaining about it on Reddit. That doesn't seem like a children's movie, if anything. Death's screen time was only around 10% of the movie as the main antagonist. However, you can still feel his intimidating and ominous presence throughout the entire movie, as he's revealed in the beginning initially. So while a whole bunch of animated films seem to have children as their primary audience, newer movies seem to have things adults can enjoy as well, because the ratings are usually above 90%, which are most likely made by adults. Thomas Stack also debates about their unrealistic nature that makes them hard to believe. He says, "I see something like huge eyes, a rubbery face, or an impossible body structure, and I keep focusing on the oddness of it rather than accepting the style for what it is. Animation has to convince you that fake people and locations are what the story says they are. It's an extra illusion on top of an already existing illusion." Quite frankly, they can have a lot of exaggerated visuals, but not all do. Anime is a big thing that people watch a lot, including the big three like Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach. The thing is, these aren't children's shows. It's organized like a live action show for adults and are thriving enormously. As people may argue, as the author does himself, they still carry out the same effects. Still, I see people get emotional from a fictional character dying. And with many newer anime like Jujutsu Kaisen and Arcane, these implement pretty tragic backstories. With Arcane especially, these graphics seem realistically well made and don't carry out the same exaggerations as the older anime do. Which makes me to believe that people are buying in the story, even though, as the author explains, that they carry out the same effects as these absurd differing realities make it non-believable. All in all, while live action provides a realistic feel, animated films can excel at narrative transportation through their visuals and characters, providing an intriguing experience for young or old viewers. It just breaks my heart that many animated films are overlooked and substituted with live action films. They take longer and require more work to develop an authentic journey, which live action outproduces due to the simple recording nature, as the scripting does most of the work. We can see only so much as live action produces them left and right. As technology evolves though, there may be ways to produce animation faster and more efficiently, ultimately catching up with the live action production rates. As these newer movies set new expectations and standards, we can engulf the true potential of animation. I'm not throwing out live action films entirely, as they have their uses and provide a realistic aspect that can still be entertaining. We just need to shed some light on animation as they scourge for more recognition and awards, especially for the animators themselves.